Hey everybody, welcome back to Why Not RV. I'm Chris, and today we're talking with Dave from On Liberty with the RV on his 3600 watt dual inverter setup. Let's get to it. Remember, if you want to learn more and make less mistakes while RVing, be sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like and a comment down below. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Now, Dave is a good friend of mine. They are with On Liberty with the RV, and I'll put a link in the description below to all of their social media. And they built 3600 watt off-grid system here on their Keystone Fusion. This is a 2023 Keystone Fusion. I'll get the exact model number for you here in a second. All right, so I'm here with Dave from On Liberty with the RV, and tell me about this Fusion you got.
Yep, so this is a brand new 2023 421 Fusion. It was the first production model of the 421. My son and I travel full time. We boondock majority of the year, or roughly 250 days a year, so we really wanted to upfit this one and just go really big on the solar system.
All right, so as you guys know, with all solar systems, you start with a really big battery bank and you need methods of charging. So let's talk about the methods of charging that we have for this thing. Let's start with the DC to DC system. Now, Dave has twin 30 amp Victron Orions that are run to a 1/0 cable that's up here at the nose of the trailer that then connects to an Anderson connector in the back of his truck. But let's get a little bit closer look. So here in Mr. Fusion headquarters, we got the twin Orion DC to DC chargers sitting up back here. Super clean install. I mean, I could not do an install nearly this clean. It is a piece of art. But like I said, that truck charging, that DC to DC charging, giving you 60 amps when you're going down the road, that's quite a bit of juice whenever you're trying to recharge. 60 amps is pretty hefty. But the next thing, that's going to be doing the main charging here, obviously for the system, is the solar. So let's talk about that a little bit. All right, Dave, so on the solar side of things, obviously I see you have the two massive MPPT 150-100s, and then you still have the stock MPPT 130 that came with the RV, just because I know Keystone is doing that whole starting with solar 200, 400, 600, 1200 options. But tell me a little bit more about actual solar and what you got going on here.
So we set this up into banks. The original Solar Flex would be the 130, which we rerouted and put up on the nose with the two panels. And then we have 6 panels, 3 in series and then parallel going. The left side bank would be 150-100 on that solar controller. The right side bank would be 150-100. I mean, we're real close to being able to push 230 amps back as we're driving. And obviously a lot of people know when you're going down the road and the panels are being cooled, that's some of the most efficient time you're gonna get in charging.
So 230 amps just from your solar.
Just from solar.
And then another 60 amps from the truck charging. So you're nearing almost 300 amps of DC charging when you're going down the road, because this is still a 12 volt system, right?
Correct, and that's, you're getting real close to, with the 4 GC3s, that's the max charging capacity that you could do. So we're really hitting on our numbers.
Now, with such a big system doing, obviously this amount of solar, this amount of batteries, dual inverters, why did you stick with 12 volt instead of going with a higher efficiency like 24 volt or 48 volt?
We considered, in the beginning, I really wanted to go with a 24 volt system. Ultimate decision was we wanted to expand the original Solar Flex system from Keystone and kind of get people comfortable that they could expand the system, and just felt that for a DIY part and showing other people they could expand the system, that 24 volt was really out of a lot of people's spectrum.
Yeah, I can 100% agree and see on that, because I see it all the time where, of course 24 volt is more efficient, but the average RVer who's trying to do an upgrade, if they're doing one multi-plus, if they're doing one solar charge controller, it's 12 volt. Everyone's sticking with 12 volt because it's simple, it's easy, you're not doing a big change. Now, if you're building something from the ground up, sure, 24 volt or 48 volt is the way to go in terms of efficiency, cabling, wire size, heat, all that type of stuff. But for upfitting something that's already established, and again, for just the expandability of something, keeping it all 12 volt just keeps it simple.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. So as a lot of you guys know that are familiar with these big systems, is one of the biggest battles is heat, right? Because everything electrical is producing heat, and as your wires are heating up, if there's extra heat in a bay, you're going to be damaging components. Now, obviously, this is all in the front storage bay of this toy hauler that is not a naturally conditioned space. So, Dave, how are you combating heat in this bay?
So On the passenger side, we put in 2 fans to push. These 2 fans are actually pushing in cool air from the outside in an empty cavity across, and then we mounted an additional 2 fans on the back side of the 2 Multi-Plus 2s to actually help suck the heat out of the Multi-Plus 2s in the entire bay, keeping the entire system cool. The way we program...
Are these coming on at certain temperatures? Are they on a switch? What's the situation there?
Yep, so they're coming off of the Multi-Plus 2s, and they're programmed to come on at a certain temperature, and then they will stay on for 3 minutes after we have dropped below that temperature.
Okay, gotcha. So it's not just constantly cycling.
Correct.
Gotcha. Now I also see we got a battery isolator back here, which if some of you guys don't know, these battery isolators, which let me see if I can get a little close-up shot of that. Those are a one-directional flow of electric protection, right? So the way that this is wired up is it's on his DC system. It's called the Gigi box. This is a thing from Keystone. But the point is, his entire DC system, aside from everything he's built here, but you know the rig's original DC system is isolated right there. So if there's ever issues with the batteries, that thing will isolate and disconnect the entire DC system, and therefore protecting the batteries and protecting the DC system. Now I also see we got the Lynx system up here and quite a bit of distribution. So can you tell me a little bit about what you got going on up there?
So we used the Lynx 1000 shunt, but prior to the shunt, we actually used a battery in. So these are our loads coming in, and we needed some things like the Gen Start, obviously is a high draw, the hydraulic system, which I've seen peak at like 80 amps. And we needed to put things over here. The rest of this all goes out. So we've got our truck charging, our DC loads, the solar flex system, bank 1, bank 2, the slave and the master coming off for the Multi-Plus 2.
Now, if you guys don't know, the slave and master situation, whenever you're doing dual inverters, again, one of the awesome things about Victron is the capability of doing parallel or series for the Multi-Plus, Quattros, all their inverter systems, but you have to set them up first. Out of the box, you just connect these together and you do all the wiring and everything like that. They don't know which one is the master and which one is the slave, and if that doesn't communicate well with each other, you're going to have problems. But being able to go into the CAN system or the VE bus system and programming these to tell them who is who, then one is basically essentially like the master computer and the other one is telling him what to do. That's why it's called master and slave. And I think Victron, you can do like 3 or 4 in parallel. It's pretty insane. You can add a lot of juice. Now obviously that's way overkill for anything for an RV, but this is a great system. Let's talk a little bit more about the Multi-Plus 2 situation that you got going on here, Dave, because I had done a really big build, and I'll have a link in the description below to that video of when I built out the Montana with dual Quattro inverters, but those were 2 individual 120 legs creating my 240, whereas these already have 2 legs of 120 in them, so you have them stacked together. So kind of explain how that works with the master and slave unit.
So as a 3,000 watt inverter, I mean, you're peaking at 2,700, and that's the actual load that it can take. The master sits there and supplies the power. When we actually hit a spike, if we kick on all 3 air conditioners, if we do something where we're starting to bring a big load in, that's when it actually tells the slave to start producing. A lot of the time though, it sits there just waiting.
So the first inverter, the main inverter, the master inverter, is doing majority of your power load, and then just when you're getting these bigger spikes, when you're using a lot of energy, that's when that slave, that backup, starts to create more power. And I assume your wiring there is all parallel.
Correct.
Right, so basically one leg of 120 matches to the second the second Multi-Plus's first leg of 120.
Correct, and that's where a lot of people have been having problems. When we brought it in and we split our shore power, we then had to use Morris connectors and bring leg 1 and leg 1 at an equal length. You don't want to get those out of one being 3 feet long, the other being 4, 5, 6 feet long, and split. Leg 1 goes to inverter 1, leg 1 also goes to inverter 2. Leg 2 also, so everything was being matched up, and then after the inverters, we had to bring them back together into single lines.
Gotcha. Now, you did how much of this work and Future Solutions, I know you partnered with them for part of it, because this isn't anything that they designed specifically, but they assisted with some things. here and there. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when we got introduced to the guys at Future Solutions, they offered to allow us to use their bays and facilities. We brought up our plans, we brought up the schematics. The guys were really impressed and happy with it, and we decided to do a partnership. Originally, I was actually going to build a system and stack the two inverters on this side, and the guys at Future Solutions kind of helped us with some aesthetics and things, and the comment kept coming from those guys of, we're going to make this a showpiece. You know, and they really did.
Oh, they 100% did. I mean, this is so clean. All of the bends in the wires here, there, and everywhere is just super, super clean. I mean, the worst looking part in this bay is the stock Keystone stuff, which is no fault of Keystone either. I mean, it's hard when you're dealing with that much stuff. They got it all zip tied, or you probably did a lot of that yourself. But I mean, it's hard when you're doing that. But I mean, everything that you guys did is just extremely clean. Wires getting tucked in everywhere. You got holders for everything, zip ties for everything. I mean, there's nothing to get tripped up on in here. So, and then do you actually use this for any actual storage space? Because it's pretty empty.
So this storage space is actually used to hold the rear motorized stairs on the back deck of the toy hauler.
Oh, okay.
And by designing it and laying it out the way we did, we can put our stairs back in here. We haven't, because everywhere we go and everyone looks up on the roof and sees a solar panel, and then we have a crowd that comes over and wants to talk solar. So we got to a point where we just don't put anything in here anymore, because everybody wants to see what's behind the bay door.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as you guys know, I'm also a really, really big fan of like automation and redundancy and being able to see things from anywhere. And with all the Victron equipment, obviously, Dave also put in the Cerbo GX and what, did you do a Touch 50 or Touch 70?
It's a Touch 50.
So a Touch 50, a little 5-inch screen inside, so you can see everything. It's all clean, there's apps. But the Cerbo GX is online, and you have a 24-hour internet inside the RV, correct?
Correct.
So let's talk about what do you got set up in there for that?
So we put the T-Mobile home internet in, the 5G internet. It also connected to our in-command system, and that allowed us to remotely make changes, to monitor our system, especially with all the new widgets that have come out for everybody's phone the Victron widgets. And as an example, we're here at the Hershey RV show, and if we leave Jameson behind for the day and we go over to the show, you know, I can pull up the in-command, I can pull up the power and see I have the power. Well, it's getting a little warm. I'm gonna kick on a second or a third AC unit, and I can adjust that for him. I can open roof vents, I can do, you know, the system automation that you talked about. I'm really a big fan of that as well, but it allows us to monitor our four-legged friend while, you know, we could be at the beach today.
Right, exactly. You could leave this thing in a 90-degree parking lot and drive 2 hours away, check in on it, see the temperatures, say, oh, it's getting a little warm in there. Let's kick on a second air conditioner. You know, the batteries have recharged enough. You got plenty of juice, and not worry about anything. Plus, you still have the onboard generator as an extreme backup. But as long as the sun's shining, you got a pretty good amount. All right, well, that's it for this week's video. If you guys have any questions about this build, make sure to drop them in the comments below. I will answer anything I can. If I don't know the answer, I'll reach out to Dave. If he doesn't know the answer, he'll reach out to somebody else. We will get the answer for you. So just drop those comments below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching One Out RV. Bye.